So, if you notice its cell structure and function, of course, it's microscopic, and you'll be studying the normal, so it's histology. You'll be moving up next year, hopefully, to pathology. But you must master the normal first. You cannot tell what is abnormal if you don't know what is normal. So when we say function, you would think of physiology, but since we have integrated our curriculum, we try not to be redundant. But when you read your Compera, your PRS, you notice there's so much physiology in it. So we'll be skipping a bit over those parts. But the nice thing about integrating structure and function, for example, I'm not good at memorization. I have a hard time with anatomy. But I remember anatomy better when I know what it is for. So I'm a purpose-driven person. You remember what to do when you remember why you need to do it. Okay? So it's like histology and anatomy are the what, and the hows and whys are in physiology and biochemistry. So if you notice, these are pictures. I will say early on that I take some slides from SlideShare. Take present tense because it's a habit that I do. I look at SlideShare. But then I compare it, double cross-check it with the textbook. The textbook can be overwhelming. But then when you type histology on SlideShare, basically it will give you mainly histology because it has already been filtered. Yes, this is one SlideShare. Wonderful pictures. Correct? So, I'll be going back a bit to comparative histology as well. Because you need to remember how the mammalian cell will differ from the plant cell. Because later, you will understand that it has significance when you talk about antibiotics that will attack cell walls, which we do not have. And that's why we can survive antibiotics, but the bacteria can't. So why am I talking this way? You need to integrate, you need to connect the dots. Sometimes it may sound tangential, you know tangential, simang in Bisaya. But you need to connect, correlate everything. That's why earlier I was talking about relationships. So cells, they're the smallest living unit, most are microscopic. And all living things are of course made up of cells from the single cellular organisms. The smallest living unit of structure and function of all organisms. It consists of a cytoplasm, enclosed within a membrane, but some are actually questionable when you talk about viruses. They're not enveloped. That's why always open up your mind, do not be rigid. That's why there are different classification of living beings, correct? Recently, our lives have been deeply affected by a certain virus. Sounds like Voldemort. I will not mention the name anymore, so tired of it. So anyway, it contains many biomolecules such as proteins and nucleic acids. Most plant and animal cells are only visible under a microscope, of course. It says most, because you need to remember the exemption. What do you remember from biology? Biologists. Raise your hand. Yes, biology. Now you are expected to answer the question, what single cell organism is? I have an update you guys. Just whisper in your classmate. Or Google it there or Google. So, my pre-med is like that. So most plant and animal cells are visible under a microscope, it says most. Because look it up, what is visible? What cell is it? So the organisms can be classified as unicellular or multicellular. So take note we study histology because of the phenomenon called cell differentiation. We need to differentiate. There are about 40 trillion cells in an adult human body. Can you even imagine the number? Hundreds of histologically distinct cell types. So, from the zygote, where does the zygote come from? The fusion of the ovum. So the cells multiply, they become blastomeres, and then the early embryos, inner cell mass blastomeres, will give rise to all tissue types of the fetus. And this process is called differentiation. And that is why we study histology. So for example, muscle cell precursors elongate into long fiber-like cells containing a large array of actin and myosin. All cells, most cells actually, contain a little bit of actin and myosin because it's actually needed for the mobility of the membrane to adjust the shape, to move, but they are very dominant, abundant in muscle fibers. That's what you compare. It's from your textbook. It looks very fun because it gives you the purpose of the differentiated cells. So for the general cellular activity of movement, you have the muscle and other contractile cells. So movement is not exclusive to muscle cells. They form, for cells that form adhesive and tight junctions between cells, meaning they're the frontliners for barriers, for protection, and other purposes, even secretion. For cell surfaces mostly, we have the epithelial cells. For those who synthesize and secrete components of the extracellular matrix, we have the fibroblasts who secrete, what does it synthesize? Fibroblasts. The most abundant protein in the body. It's a very famous commercial product to keep looking young. Okay. See, you can answer right away when you correlate it to what is around you. So fibroblasts, cells of the bone and cartilage. Then you have a big cells that convert physical and chemical stimuli into action potentials. So we have the neurons and sensory cells. You hear sound? What? The bones of the inner ear transmit that vibration to the eardrum. Asaman, did I say it right? No one is reacting. There we go. I said that the bones of the inner ear will transmit to the eardrum. I don't know. Now you're trying to visualize it. Diba? Ear canal, eardrum first, right? That's what you look into when you try to look at it if you don't have that much ear holes. And then you just have stapes, malleus, incus. You connect it to the oval and round windows. Then that's when they get to transmit it. So movement, vibration, energy, movement. Mechanical. It's mechanical, right? It's vibration. It gets transmitted to chemical signals in the cochlea. It's the cochlea is connected to your what? What nerve is that? Say that nerve number. I'm pretty sure most of you underwent anatomy. Okay, we're just talking about purpose. I'm going to move on to the histology. I'm tiring myself. I'll finish this in 30 minutes. We can have a break at 9. We should have done it. Anyway, so I want you to understand, appreciate how cells are the basic beauty. Simple, but not that simple. So synthesis and secretion of the regulatory enzyme, once you find the digestive glands, secretion of glycoproteins, mucous glands, differentiation. Take note of that. Go back to this when you want to remember the basic functions of different cells that you will study later. So for the cell types, we have the prokaryotic, eukaryotic. Anyone will remember What is cranial nerve number 8, the name? Elbow. So the prokaryotic cells are the first cell type on Earth, of course. So they're the cell type of bacteria and archaea, let's go into that. The prokaryotic cells have no membrane-bound nucleus. They contain only a nucleus with a region of DNA concentration for their multiplication. And the organelles are not bound by membranes. You remember that when you study microbiology in secondary. For the eukaryotic cells, so the nucleus is bound by membrane. This includes plant and animal cells, and they possess many organelles. This is representative of an animal cell, and we are part of it. It has a round shape, and because of its rigid cell wall, for the plant cell, it tends to have an angular shape. So we're gonna go into organelles. So it's the cellular machinery. It administers the function. Don't take notes. We're gonna do opposites. Two general kinds are those derived from membranes and those what we call bacterial organelles. For the plasma membrane, let's now get down to the molecular level of its composition. It contains cell contents, meaning it bounds the cell contents. It consists of a double layer of phospholipids and proteins. There's a very pretty picture. Okay? If you notice, it's a bilipid layer. The round hydrophilic, philia, it means Philadelphia, City of France, because it was founded by the Quakers or the Society of France, Philadelphia. It is friendly to water, hydrophilic. So if you notice, it's facing the inner part of the cell and the outer environment because we are made up of water or aqueous. Correct? Whereas those that are hydrophobic, not literally scared of water, but phobia, you can remember the word, it will tend to face each other. Look at those scales facing each other. They don't want to face the world out there, the aqueous world out there, so they just talk to each other. So the grayscale pictures are giving us views of the transelectron microscope view. Dr. Mark, do we have transelectron microscope in Cebu City? We don't. Only in the capital? Okay. So if you're into this kind of stuff later, molecular biology, maybe someday you will be part of the effort that we can have our own PEM, transelectron microscope in our city. So much for that. So for movement across the plasma membrane, a few molecules move freely through it: water, carbon dioxide, ammonia, oxygen. While the rest, most of our fluids are hydrophilic, of course, so it cannot permeate or penetrate directly. That's why you'll need protein transports. So proteins embedded in the lipid bilayer, so this is called a fluid mosaic model. You know what's a mosaic, right? Like there's a pattern and somehow there's an arrangement, and the proteins are the ones interrupting the pattern. So that's showing the flow, freely flowing for water, ammonia, carbon dioxide, oxygen. For lipid soluble substances as well, you notice it doesn't need a protein carrier. Letter P, hydrocarbon. Does it need a protein carrier? Yes or no? Give me one very famous recreational substance that is lipid soluble. We love it on the weekends and on vacation. We use it to unwind. Yes, of course. That's what it's soluble. You remember the chemistry? Look, it will just have you ever heard of alcohol channels? Alcohol protein channels? No. Now you will remember that alcohol is liquid soluble, so it will freely permeate to my brain and will prevent me from studying, so not too much. Now it sounds like a mother. Anyway, for the water soluble substances, we have glucose, it cannot penetrate because it is blocked by the hydrophobic part. Glucose is of course water soluble. It is hydrophilic. It can only talk to the hydrophilic heads, but the tails will drive it away. Does it help you to think like this? Okay, this is how you study to make it fun. For the ions, look, again, those ions are lipid soluble. So that's how you visualize the function of the structure of the cell. It's all on the internet. Those images. For the membrane proteins, you have channels or transporters. Redundant physiology. Oh, it's like I'm giving a reference on physiology. First subject I ever taught on physiology. So forgive me if I get there with the physiology. Then we have the receptors. So functions of membrane proteins. Channels are transporters, receptors, which will recognize certain chemicals. They function like a lock and key. And please, these are the fun parts of living camera. So many diseases are caused by defective receptors, for example, hypoparathyroidism and one type of dwarfism are caused by non-functional parathyroid and growth hormone receptors, respectively. For those, sometimes even those with decent English language get confused when there's an respectively in a sentence. So you pair up hypoparathyroidism with non-functioning parathyroid receptors. Okay, you pair the first one mentioned, the second one mentioned. And that's what respectively means, because I have seen students get this mixes up. I mix it up sometimes myself. English is not my first language. In these two conditions, the glands produce the respective hormones, but the target cells cannot respond because they lack hormone receptors. Okay, nice application for the receptors. Then another function of membrane proteins are glycoproteins, and also just enzymes. For the cell walls, found in plants, fungi, and many proteins, they surround the plasma membrane. So, plasma membrane, then outer cell wall. And that's what the antibiotic will do. Next, cell wall differences. Plants, we have mostly cellulose or fungi, mostly, how do you pronounce that? Thank you. Cytoplasm. So this is the nucleus fluid containing organelles. Components of cytoplasm are composed of interconnected filaments and fibers in which shape the fluid part, the cytosol, and the organelles, not including the nucleus and the storage substances. For the cytoskeleton, we have the filaments and fibers made up of three fiber types: the microfilaments, microtubules, intermediate filaments. Their three functions are mechanical support, they anchor the organelles, and they help move substances for movement, for support, and anchoring. So there, that's a transelectron microscope view. And again, this is from your compare. It's a very good table on comparing the attributes, the characteristics of the cytoskeletal components. When I make the effort to copy-paste it from the compare, that means I like it. And it's a very good material for questions. I can make that items out of it. So, another fun part of Matera are several inhibitory compounds used by cell biologists to study details of microtubule dynamics. They are also widely used in cancer chemotherapy. You notice it's targeted to block the activity of the mitotic spindle in rapidly growing neoplastic cells. So, examples of these drugs are vincristine, paclitaxel, and I will not ask this question because this is for second year level, but it's nice to know. For the cilia and the flagella, so they provide mobility. The cilia is short, used to move substances outside human cells. But we have a lot of cilia in the rest of the our track so that you can cut up your plan. And please pick it responsibly in the right places. Do not spit the road. I shall give you that look across the road. If I see you spitting on the road, and I will discriminate against boys. Boys like to spit on the road. It's a form of masculinity for some of them. Have you ever heard of a spitting contest? Now, the next time you see someone spitting out their plan, you say, he or she has a very effective cilia structures, correct? Very strong cilia spitting on the road, cannot wait. Okay, for flagella, these are rib-like extensions found on sperm cells for humans. Basal bodies, they have basal bodies like centrioles. They're made up of bundles of microtubules and they have their own plasma membrane. Let's now go to the centrioles. These are pairs of microtubular structures and they play a role in cell division. They help align the chromatin, the DNA material. See that like fingers of a dividing cell. For the membranous organelles now, let's go to that. There are functional components inside the cytoplasm. They're also bound by membranes. We're talking about the animal cell here. The nucleus is the control center of cell. It has a double membrane. That's why when we study cells, take note of the exceptions because it will sometimes mention the exceptions. For example, what usually has a double layer is mentioned without a single layer. The nucleus contains the chromosomes in the nucleus center. And then there's the nuclear envelope, which separates nucleus from the rest of the cell. It has a double membrane. It has pores. Again, there's a picture there. When you study this later. So this part is actually from your Rontera. I think it's there, of course. So the cytoplasm is separated from the nucleoplasm by the nuclear envelope. It has a double set of membranes with a narrow perimeter space. The outer membrane binds ribosomes and is continuous with a rough endoplasmic reticulum. So it is penetrated by nuclear complexes with large assemblies of nucleoporins with eightfold symmetry for which proteins and protein RNA complex move in both directions. So it's like a factory for data. Remember, functional nucleus. The nuclear envelope is supported internally by a meshwork. The nuclear lamina composed of intermediate filaments of units called lamina. So this intermediate filaments also has special names. When you study your Rontera chapter later on, please take note of the tables posted in the slides. Take note of all medical applications. Because that's the point you're studying this, so you'll know the application later. So the DNA contains the hereditary material, the chromosomes. The DNA contains the chromosomes, contain the DNA, the proteins, and they form for cell division. And of course, we have the chromatin. The chromatin is the combination of the DNA and its associated proteins. We have two types, the euchromatin with active DNA, and it will stain lightly. For the heterochromatin, it's inactive, it stains more darkly. Why? You need to ask why. The first chapter of your Rontera talks about staining techniques for identification because we cannot study histology without the process which will help us identify it, mark it. You know how those ecologists track those dolphins and wild animals? They must put a tracker on it. In histology, staining is done, or very powerful microscopes to visualize. We need to identify first what we're looking at. When you say euchromatin, why would it stain lightly? What happens to the DNA? Remember, what is the structure of the DNA? Double-strand coiled helices. If that is in compact form, of course it will. What happens? If it's in compact form, is it active or inactive? I know you've studied DNA in undergraduate.
Inactive.
When it is in coiled compact form, is it active or inactive? Inactive. You know, when you're curled up in your bed, you're not stretched out. That's you. And you're gonna absorb all the stain or the histology staining. That's why it will be dark. The oil in active form becomes dark. And that's how the staining works. It's like immunochromatin because what happens to the DNA when it's active? It will uncoil, straighten out, for splicing, for breeding, for transcription, replication, correct? You need to straighten out so you can lead. Who's watching Game of Thrones? House of the Dragon. How do they write their letters? Through the ravens. Coiled letters. You need to stretch it out so they can read it like DNA. Okay? So go. The DNA, last episode, I'm going to wait for season 3. So the DNA molecule usually wraps around complex sets of basic proteins called histones or chromosomes because the structure assembly leads on a string. So the additional levels of chromatin fiber condensation are less well understood, however. So let's move on from that. The extra X chromosome in cells of female mammals forms facultative heterochromatin and then seen as the bar bodies. So sometimes it's one way they can identify a female or a male cell. For the nucleolus, so most cells have 2 or more. So it directs the synthesis of RNA, it forms ribosomes. It's very basophilic, of course, or electron dense with chromatin localized where rRNA, replication RNA, transcription, and ribosomal subunits assembly occur. By TEM, trans-electron microscope, an inactive nucleus is seen to have fibrous and regular parts where rRNA forms, ribosomal units, subunits are assembled respectively. Ribosomal RNA, favorite parts. So it talks about bar bodies, gender chromatin, permit gender to be determined microscopically. If patients whose external sex organs do not permit that determination, such as hermaphroditism and pseudohermaphroditism. The sex chromatin analysis also helps reveal other anomalies involving the sex chromosomes, such as those of Klinefelter syndrome, which causes testicular abnormalities, and oosospermia, or absence of sperm. So going to neoplastic proliferation, that's potentially a cancer or tumor growth, even if it's benign. So cancer is the most common term for all malignant tumors. And last application, cardiotide is important for many prenatal diagnoses, in which chromosomal analysis of cultural cells from the fetus or ambient can detect genetic abnormalities. Cardiotide. So move to the ER, helps move substances within the cells. There are a network of interconnected membranes. There are 2 types, rough ER and smooth ER. What makes rough ER rough? Interactive. What makes smooth ER smooth? Absence of it. Very good. Now we're in logic class. So, a nice picture again, just to illustrate that they're pretty fun to do. At least they will explain. As you read about the functions, you look at the pictures. So, this one has histochemical staining or under fluorescence, it's lighting up different methods that we talked about in chapter 1, if you want to go to that. TEM view, of course, that will be the diagram. And just a summary of your ER. So, of course, ribosomes are attached to the surface, they manufacture proteins. However, not all ribosomes are attached to the rough ER. Some are just floating around in cytoplasm. And they modify proteins from the ribosomes. So, of course, that has enzymes mostly that help build molecules and metabolize molecules. The famous substance that we talk about that can easily penetrate your cellular membranes, the enzymes for metabolizing that are found in the smooth ER. Okay? That's why they're also for detoxification. I was talking about alcohol. The beer that you like, the wine that you like. So, for just a picture to illustrate protein localization and morphology. Again, adjusting according to function. In the erythroblast, what does it say? Cells that make few or no proteins for secretion have very little rough ERs. Look at the red blood cell or the erythroid blaster. So for the second one, eosinophilic lymphocyte. They synthesize, segregate, and store various proteins. We have the Golgi. And since it is eosinophil, it has a lot of granules. The plasma cell, what is in it? What do plasma cells do? They are ones that produce the antibodies. For the pancreatic assigner cells, look at the localization. What are the circles? Those are granules ready to be secreted on the apical surface. When you say apical, the apex, that's the surface of the intestine, for example, or the duct. Whereas in the basilar part, you know the base here. In the base part, you have the manufacturers there, the RAB-ER, to produce those granules, those enzymes are ready to be secreted. That's an example of the pancreas. And that's an example of protein localization morphology. You see, they arrange themselves according to their function. On the apical surface, ready to be secreted into the pancreatic duct, you have the granules. On the basal surface, you have the endoplasmic reticulum. So just another medical application about jaundice. The Golgi apparatus is involved in the synthesis of plant cell wall for plants, the packaging and shipping station of a cell for both plants and animals. Okay. So Golgi apparatus functions, so the nucleus come in vesicles. The vesicles fuse with the Golgi membrane for just that. Then they're modified. Then they pinch off in the separate vesicle. So the Golgi apparatus will actually cut off a part of its membrane to package. So, do you still have physical books or all e-books? E-books already? Who among you here has reached the stage of enjoying wrapping your physical books in plastic covers and the Golgi apparatus function? You're not ready. Who can relate? You know, I see someone very shy to raise his her hand because it will reveal that he or she is of my generation. Don't be shy. We are wiser. We are cooler in a way because we are not easily rattled by our teachers. I noticed the older students are not easily rattled. You stick to your aunts and kuyas here, the older students, because they're the ones who will role model for you how to not get intimidated by teachers. I'm giving you a clue already. Unless you already have this very well developed level of self-confidence. It's not a bad thing actually. It just means you had earlier training on composure. Just a picture of the function of the Golgi apparatus from Honkera, if you're interested. For the lysosomes, they contain digestive enzymes. Their functions are aiding in cell renewal, breaking down old cell pores, and they digest in the layers of pores. And then we have the residual body, which are digestible minerals retained with a small vascular remnant. And glycogen is one example of residual bodies that accumulate in long-lived cells, like the neuron, the heart, the muscle. Diba? They say, take care of your neurons. And then the heart, of course. So another medical application and examples of lysosomal storage diseases caused by defective lysosomal enzymes. Going to the proteosomes, these are abundant cytoplasmic and nuclear protein complexes not associated with membrane, each approximately the size of a small ribosomal unit. So they degrade, denatured, or otherwise non-functional polypeptides. They remove proteins. Proteins no longer needed by the cell. They provide an important mechanism for restricting the activity of a specific protein to a certain window of time. And whereas lysosomes, this is the difference, digest organelles or membranes by autophagy, proteosomes deal primarily with free proteins as individual molecules. So another medical application, if the proteasomes will fail. So one of those are Alzheimer's disease and Huntington disease, caused initially by such protein aggregates because the proteasomes did not do their job. The neoperoxisomes, which are spherical organelles enclosed by single membrane and named for their enzyme producing and degrading hydrogen peroxide, H2O2. And oxidase is completed here, oxidized substrate by removing hydrogen atoms that are transferred to molecular oxygen, producing the hydrogen peroxide. So peroxidases such as catalase immediately break down hydrogen peroxide, which is potentially damaging to the cell. What famous scientific and commercial term do you remember about this? It's how they sell health products. It's how they sell famous ba? The packaging of beauty, antioxidants. The moment you put antioxidants, this is probably healthy and it's gonna burn your skin off. And these enzymes also inactivate various potentially toxic molecules, including some prescription drugs, particularly in the large and abundant peroxisomes of the liver and kidney cells, mostly for detoxifying. Then we have the vacuoles. So these are membrane-bound storage sacs, and they're more common in plants and animals. They may contain water, food, and waste. Then we have what we call bacterial-like organelles. So they release and store energy, and we have types like mitochondria and chloroplasts for storage energy. That is for fats. Why are they called bacterial-like? Because mitochondria have their own DNA bound by double membrane. Ever heard of maternal mitochondrial DNA? So most of our cells, the DNA is inherited from both mother and father, right? Whereas almost 100% of mitochondrial DNA is inherited from the mother. The implication, if there are defects in mitochondrial function passed to the maternal DNA, so meaning it is the mother who was the carrier. Okay? So they break down fuel molecules, which is called cellular respiration. This is a different definition of respiration from our breathing in, breathing out. So, such as glucose, fatty acids, and they release energy, which is the ATP, adenosine triphosphate. All the structural organelles. It's in your book. It's a good table. Use it to organize the material in your head. Learn to love tables that help you organize. So this is just the summary at the end of the Montero chapter. Nice to know stuff. And when you just comparisons. So, of course, let's not forget about the molecular movement of cells. In cells, we have passive transport, active transport, endocytosis consisting of phagocytosis for solid materials, and pinocytosis for called cell drinking for absorbing imbibing liquid materials. So we have, of course, the exocytosis, and that's how enzymes are secreted, by the way. And again, a lovely label from Home Care from the textbook, which will help you organize the material. Study the tables. So just short notes. Passive, of course, no energy required. They move according to gradient. When you say gradient, it does not apply only to solutes. So an area of of less concentration, of greater concentration to less. So even nature has a sense of justice. Diba? We have what we call social justice in our social sciences. That's why are working for universal healthcare. Anyone familiar? Because we want to equalize that health is a right and distributed to all, and nature follows suit. Wherever there is something more, it will try to go where there is something less. Does not apply only to solutes, it also applies to fluids, to water, and we call that movement in water through permeable and semi-permeable membranes as osmosis. However, what about pressure? When you go up, when you go down in an airplane, or even an elevator in a high-rise building, what do you feel? Your ears will pop. Why is that? That is the equalization of the pressure from the atmosphere to your middle ear. It equalizes to your vestigial tube. That's why it gets relieved when you swallow. Why is that? Where is pressure greater? At sea level or at a higher altitude? Where? What? So Mark, where is pressure greater? I'm according to that. Wait, serious about? When do you feel the pressure? Going down or going up? There. In the airplane. Where does it hurt more? No, I'm also wondering about this myself because the baby's cry when it goes up is also cry when it goes down. You can relate, right? Please be patient with the babies. Bring your noise cancelling earphones. Seriously, where is pressure greater? Sige na lang, in general, where does it go? Greater pressure to low pressure or low pressure to greater pressure? When you think of gradients. Gradient, the rule. In order to equalize, high moves to low. Why do we get scared when we hear a low pressure area for the weather report? What does low pressure area in the Philippine area of responsibility, we're not about the weather, have to do with gradient? It's low pressure. Therefore, it will attract currents. Diba? It's like a magnet for winds. In the attempt of the weather, the atmosphere to equalize the pressure in the air. And this will create winds, bringing with it clouds and rain and thunder and lightning. Can you visualize it now? Now you understand. This is the first time you understood. I explained this the other day to our helper, and she understood. So that was my test. Okay? That is your gradient equalizing. And that's a general rule of physiology and pathology. Always the attempt for balance. Okay, so diffusion, osmosis, facilitated diffusion. Diffusion means, of course, spreading out, always in an attempt to equalize. And osmosis is a special form of diffusion, fluid flowing from the lower concentration. Which is easier to move, water or the solid particles? Through a membrane. Of course, water. That's why the water will adjust. Just like human behavior, even liquids and solids, between the liquid and the solid, nature will also take the path of this resistance, right? We go for the easy way. That's why I don't know why you're in medicine. Because this is not the easy way. You are going against nature, by the way. I don't wanna, I'll stop recording. Okay, let's go. So just get through this. This is in your physiology. It's very heavy, but if this helps you simplify it in your mind, using the thought processes that we just went through, look around you. Relate it to the cellular level. Oh, the red blood cells. The classic experiment. You shrink. If it's hypertonic, it shrinks. Because the water will go out to try to equalize. It's always an attempt to balance. Is it clearer now compared to medicine, to pre-med? Am I making things clearer? This is your first lecture. Really? First blood? Yes. So, consolidated division. You'll see a lot of this in physiology. I can talk for hours on this, but I will not, because we still have epithelium. Processes of consolidated transport. But I hope I have ignited that light bulb in your head. Active transport is also fun, but again, wait for physiology. Because there's a lot of overlap. And then there's endocytosis, of course, and Jones, and then the phagocytosis, so eating, so drinking. Exocytosis. That is the transelectron microscope view, the one in black and white. I finish it there. Yes, take a break, 10-minute break, and let's go to epithelium.